Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, folks. How you doing? Welcome to Harlem World Magazine. Around the world, around the block, Harlem World Magazine is for anyone who has a Harlem state of mind. And that's you, dedicated to news, history, the Renaissance, and stories that celebrate Harlem lifestyle and Harlem itself. I'm Danny Tisdale, and we're on the Danny Tisdale Show. And before we get started, we want to change up things a little bit and tell you a few things that are trending on the website, and do look at the site and check out all the things that have to do with Harlem regarding to Black Lives Matter. And, of course, since almost April, I guess, the COVID crisis and all the latest stories that are happening. Our number one story today, I'm just going to give you the top three. Trump commutes sentence of Harlem resident Roger Stone, unveiling of the 125th Street Harlem Renaissance 2.0 banners celebrating same-gender love. And last but not least, NYC missed a chance to invest in small business owners owned by women and men and women of color. Something to add to that. Well, you know what? I'll come back to that, and we'll get right to our conversation that we have here as we look at the protests regarding Mr. Floyd, Ms. Taylor, and many others. On top of the COVID virus and more, we wanted to speak again. We spoke to her last year, Honorable Tanya R. Kennedy. Harlem's Honorable Tanya R. Kennedy is the immediate past president of the National Association of Women Judges, an organization of over 1,000 judges, attorneys, law professors, law students from across the nation. She is also Supreme Court Justice of the State of New York, civil term, and former supervising judge of civil court of New York City County. Judge Kennedy previously served 10 years plus as an adjunct professor at Fordham University School of Law. She is chair of the New York City Bar Committee to Encourage Judicial Service and a member of the board of Overseers of the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law, where she received her law degree. And I think as of Monday this week, we found out that Tanya Kennedy has been appointed as one of 4 judges to the First Department of the Appellate Division of New York City Court. And I think I have that right. And if I don't have it right, Judge Kennedy will correct me. How are you doing, Judge?
Oh, good afternoon, Danny, and to your listeners. Thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the show, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Just 2 minor corrections. I'm now the past president of the National Association of Women Judges. My term ended 2018, so that's even a better title than immediate past president, because I still had duties in that role.
Gotcha. I see.
I'm also no longer the chair of the Committee to Encourage Judicial Service with the New York City Bar Association. I finished my term last month, and I was recently elected to the board of directors of that same organization. And now myself, along with 3 other colleagues, Honorable Manuel Mendez, he's of Dominican descent, another person of color, myself, Sally Ann Scarpula, and Martin Shulman. The 4 of us were appointed as associate justices of the Appellate Division First Department. So I want to say congratulations to them, and I'm really looking forward to working with them and my other colleagues who are already on the court.
Well, thank you so much for clarifying some of the parts of the introduction, but it sounds like life does as it does. As you make room in one area, you have room filled by another appointment in another area. So what does it mean, this new appointment by Governor Cuomo? How does it change your life?
Well, certainly I'm going to miss my colleagues here at 60 Center Street. I will no longer be a trial judge.
I see.
I will now, along with my colleagues, be reviewing the decisions of my trial court colleagues.
I see.
And I'm really excited about the new opportunities and challenges that await me, and certainly my presiding Justice Rolando Acosta, who is also of Dominican descent, said that I should take some time off before I start in September because it's a lot of work.
That's what I was going to ask you too. Yeah, I was going to ask you that because you're busy. Will you still be teaching as a adjunct at Fordham, or what else changes for you?
Well, that change took place quite a while ago. I actually resigned when I was elected back in 2015 to Supreme Court. I just felt that in light of the increased responsibilities elected to Supreme Court, and then I knew that I was in line to become the president of the National Association of Women Judges, and I had some other leadership responsibilities that I really wouldn't be able to devote sufficient time that would be needed for the students, and it was best for me to resign. But I have to tell you, Danny, since you bring this up, and because it's going to be a lot of work, I certainly will be going under the radar for a bit so I can get myself acclimated into this new role.
Right. Well, and I wanted to ask you a career question, because what I hear you doing is, as you make steps forward, you are looking at your schedule, you're looking at your physical time, where you're working, and probably the other things that you are doing that we probably don't know about. So you're really making this conscious effort to, I guess you could say, kind of adequately devote time to each job that you're taking that might, I guess that's new, so that you make sure that you do your due diligence, dot your I's, cross your T's. It sounds like you're taking those kind of careful steps as you take the steps forward to make sure that you can provide as much quality to those positions as they come. Is that true, or it just sounds that way?
Oh, Danny, absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head, that I really have to allot the sufficient time and attention to this role and what I currently do now as a Supreme Court justice. And, certainly one of the things that I've learned along the way, and I say this when I'm on the speaking circuit, that you really have to know when to say no, but also I like the words "not right now," because you're not foreclosing anything, but it's really about self-care. It's really hard to say a balance, because there's always going to be something that takes precedence and something will fall along the wayside. So it's really important to prioritize so that you can pay attention to what needs to be addressed, and don't burn out, because self-care is always so important. And as I say, the airline attendant always instructs us that we should put our mask on first before we help others. And I think that same instruction should guide our everyday lives, because self-care is so essential to one's professional success.
very eloquently said, and I couldn't agree more, and especially I'll use your mask analogy as a segue to my next question, especially as we, look at the coronavirus and where we are and what's been going on. And so how have you been working? Are you with the virus, and we haven't spoken since last year for the most part, are you working from home? Are you in the office? Are you doing a little bit of both, or what?
Right. Well, I work in the courthouse twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday. So I'm actually in the courthouse along with my staff. I have 2 court attorneys. And, for example, today I handled 3 oral arguments, where we conducted the oral argument virtually, and I was able to dispose of the motions because I had prepared sufficiently, read the papers, engaged in oral argument, and rendered a decision orally, which I then transcribed into writing and sent it to the clerk to upload into the court system. The other 3 days, we work from home, where we're drafting decisions. I'm preparing for oral argument, then conducting the oral argument, signing off on orders. So certainly, I can't take credit for this term, but I really, it struck a chord with me when I read it. The columnist Charles Blow from the New York Times, there was one column where he wrote, "Social distancing is a privilege." And obviously, I am privileged that I can work remotely from home. Everyone doesn't have that privilege.
Right. And it's so true, and I, quite frankly, hadn't looked at it that way, that I'm able to, work from home, doing the work that I do, and it is a privilege because otherwise, I would be in an office, and it would be an office filled with many, many people who probably would feel that the mask is user-friendly, and some that probably would not feel that way. So I certainly am lucky. And in the past, Judge, you would always be in your office, and it wouldn't be 2 days on or 3 days off the way that you're working now. It would have been always in your office and doing whatever work needed to be work in your office.
Exactly. And I just want to add one more thing. I am right now living in such a state of gratitude. The fact that I'm gainfully employed, that my paycheck has not been altered, that I tested in the past negative for both COVID and antibodies. That does not mean that I'm still immune, but thus far, so good. I was blessed to celebrate my 53rd birthday on July 4th, and I did it with my mother and my significant other, and that
fantastic.
they were alive. They could tell the story to share this recent appointment with me, because we've lost so many lives due to COVID-19, particularly in the Black community. And this has really shined light on the systemic inequities in the healthcare system and the lack of access to vital resources. Really, it's 2 pandemics, COVID-19 and certainly racism, as we mourn the deaths of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Rashad Brooks, Elijah McClain, countless other Black and Latino people, including those from the LGBTQ community.
Right. Most certainly, and I thank the heavens and the spirits that I was raised by Southern parents who always insisted that I remember the past and the present, but that because I'm alive, I focus on being positive for the future. I will finish that statement in a second, but I do want to let our listeners know they're listening to the Danny Tisdale Show on Harlem World Radio, and this is the Danny Tisdale Show. And we are speaking to Judge Tanya Kennedy, and we're talking about where we are in our wonderful country. And as we look at what's happening with the virus and the protests. And Judge, I wanted to ask you, I'm going to rephrase it a little differently here. Much like I feel that the National Association of Women Judges is, and these are my words, seem to be founded to bring women to create female judges, women judges. Do we need to do the same thing in communities around the country as we look at police departments that don't seem to understand how to police their community? Do we need to have black and brown folks and all kind of other folks into our police departments locally and have a 10 to 15 to 25 to 50-year plan, or there's a lot more that needs to be done to make change?
Danny, I'm going to tweak the answer a bit, and I want to go back, and I'm so sorry I do not know the name offhand, and that's just information overload. I also want to acknowledge just the recent death of the 1-year-old who
yes, it was shot,
died due to gun violence, and certainly the young man, I believe they just had his funeral days before the graduation, and my heart goes out to these families as well. The issue is this: in spite of the recent tragic events, I believe that there is a silver lining in all of this as we're seeing a rise in the community's civic engagement, and that we now see diverse groups calling and marching for change as opposed to the 1960s. So I'm hopeful that a movement has started. We now see the white community marching with blacks and raising their voices that all black lives matter. And also, I'm grateful that the white community is now recognizing our pain and is willing to listen and join as our allies. In my mind, I believe it's important that we sustain this momentum and be open to having open and honest dialogue, which may be uncomfortable, regarding slavery, systemic racism, existing inequalities, and what actions can be implemented, as opposed to empty lip service, as well as to call out and to take a stand against racism. But it even goes further, because 2020 is an important year. And obviously, as a judge, I cannot be political, but I am very comfortable in saying that we must vote, because each person's vote has a direct impact on every facet of our lives, the type of laws that are enacted. And we have seen recent enactment of laws, elected officials who enact and enforce these laws, the judges, like myself, who interpret the law. So it's important that persons spread the word regarding the need to vote, participate in voter registration and voter protection efforts, because there are efforts to suppress the vote. I also believe that increasing diversity is an access to justice issue. When you have a diverse bench, it leads to better decision making. You can say the same thing about lawyers. Providing opportunities is a key component of access to justice. I was fortunate that someone saw my potential, opened the door, and provided me with an opportunity, and I proved myself. The problem is that not enough doors are open, and there are those who have the power to open the door, to provide access, and I encourage those persons to wield that power. If I can go further, I know this is a long answer, but I think it's so important.
No, please.
We cannot avoid jury service. We cannot give answers to ensure that we're kicked off the jury, because jury service provides jurors an opportunity to play a role in the judicial branch of government and further strengthen our system of laws and stabilize our democracy, which is currently being threatened, as well as the rule of law and judicial independence, which serves to ensure the rights and equal protection of all persons under the Constitution. So what I'm really saying, Danny, is that it's going to take the community, it's going to take the bench, it's going to take the bar to join forces to further the change that is already afoot. Each person can play a particular role. So I believe it's important to have implicit bias, cultural sensitivity, training across the board. And I want to tell you that it was Syracuse City Court Judge Derek Thomas, I want to give him a shout out because he spearheaded the effort to have 122 judges of color throughout this state to sign a letter affirming our commitment to equal justice for all in the courts. And I must say, it was published in a number of media outlets. And normally judges don't speak out, but
right.
To me, it was revolutionary that these judges signed the letter. I was proud to sign the letter, but my colleague and others composed the letter and then made the efforts. But we have to take a stand. I certainly want to commend the chief judge of New York State Courts, who has recently commissioned an independent review of the state court system's response to issues of institutional racism. So the issue, Danny, is all sectors, right? The legal sector, the corporate sector, nonprofit sectors have to take a look at ourselves and really address these long-standing systemic issues of racism.
Judge, that is right on point. And I was trying to listen to see if I could disagree somewhere within what you're saying, just to make it interesting.
Listen,
but
Dan, I want to say something else, if I may.
Go.
And I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I think it really bears repeating, because I moderated a Juneteenth celebration, and it was with Cheryl Wills, who was just outstanding, who really explained the significance of why Juneteenth is a holiday that all Americans should celebrate, not just Black Americans. And I had mentioned to her that I watched the George Floyd Memorial Service. And when Reverend Sharpton made the call, for the foot to be taken off our necks, every Black person could relate to that sentiment. That's regardless of their social status. And I acknowledge that I had a foot on my neck, both professionally and personally, but that the community's activism and the recent laws have instilled in me and the Black community with hope. But the struggle still continues, and this is why we need our white brothers and sisters to continue to stand with us, because
that's right.
It's about white privilege, and that's just getting the benefit of the doubt, because the white community has benefited from long-standing racism and systemic inequities which stem from over 400 years of slavery and the institutional structures which has furthered such aim. And this is why we need deliberate action on the part of the white community. We're seeing this. So we just can't give up.
It certainly so, and I don't. There will probably be some judge that will give up, but I know that we won't give up. And you mentioned something about voting, and it just so happens that I have some statistics here, and this is from 2016, and it's a list states, 5 states, as an example, where African Americans did not vote in the 2016 election. And I'm going to go through this real quickly. Milwaukee, 93,000 African Americans did not vote. In Miami, 379,000 African Americans did not vote. In Detroit, 277,000 African Americans did not vote. In Philadelphia, 238,000 black folks did not vote. And in Atlanta, 530,000 black folks did not vote. And if you think people can make a difference, well, we hear it verbally, and we know it now by the numbers. You can look at the data. So change can be made. It's just rather you that are listening, your neighbors next to you, around the corner want that change to happen. But that change that we want can happen. It only makes America a better place. As you mentioned, Judge, diversity is what has made us the incredible country that we are. And in order to continue doing that, those kind of things that you're talking about has to happen. And, I think they will happen. But I did want to change the gears a little bit. And believe it or not, as I knew would be the case, we've got 2 minutes left. I knew it.
Yes.
I knew it. Great conversation. Always flies by. And I'm just going to ask you 2 questions.
Yeah.
And ask them in a row. How do you unwind? Is it an incredible visit to not the south of France, but maybe South Harlem, or do you meditate? And can you share your contact information? Of course, not the personal stuff, but how our readers can stay in contact with your great work.
I'm going to give you a part A and part B. Pre-COVID, I enjoyed travel, going to restaurants, the spa. Currently, in COVID, I'm enjoying the tranquility. I'm enjoying walking,
at home.
To the park through.
Yes. Yes.
I'm really enjoying audio books. We may differ on this, but I really like the news, and I rarely had a chance to finish my New York Times, and I picked up some other papers, so I'm enjoying that, and I'm enjoying various Zoom happy hours with sorority sisters, high school classmates, etc., etc. Let me say this way, Danny. Right now, I'm going underground, as I mentioned. When I come above ground, Danny, you will be among the first persons that I reach out to you about how
thank you.
People can contact me. And certainly, Danny, I need to see you in person, and I know it's going to happen one of these days.
It most definitely is. And we're at, believe it or not, 20 seconds. Thank you so much for being on the show again, and congratulations for your work, your continued work, and your new position. And I can't think of anyone who deserves it more. Thank you, Judge Kennedy, for being on the show.
Thank you. I want to say to you and the staff and to the listeners, God bless, take care, and most of all, stay safe.
And you do the same, and all the best to you. And I can't wait for my dinner. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And listeners, thank you for being with us, and you know that we'll talk to you soon. Harlem World Magazine loves you. Bye-bye.